Okay, this is Sprint 1 that I'm working on here. This is Trello, one of the applications. First thing we had to do was pretty much figure out this Trello. Fortunately, there was no real demonstration or any kind of video telling us how to use it. So um, I did my best with that. Um, so some of the things I've been working on. Some of the tools it said to use were the GNS3 and there was EVE-NG and dcloud, Cisco dcloud. And I've not used any of those tools. So GNS3 was probably the most familiar of the three. I'm not sure if we can use Packet Tracer or not, but that's something that we can address later. And but some of the researching stuff that I did, and most of my first sprint had to do with really researching the project, breaking it down into pieces, and figuring out exactly what the ask was, what some of the pitfalls might be, and some of the assumptions I had to make because there's not a whole lot of information other than what it's asking for and some of the technologies it wants us to use. So what I did is I broke the project down into basically bite-sized pieces to kind of make heads or tails out of it, and so that I can address it in a proactive way and a productive way. So uh, I had to research the technologies first of all. That was asking. I wasn't familiar with the SD WAN, SD networking, and some of the other things that it asked us to use. This overlaying. I wasn't sure what HPC farms meant or flops and cryptocurrency. Of course, I've heard of like Bitcoin and those, but I don't know a whole lot about them. I've never used them or invested them, and pretty much heard them just as a passing thing, kind of thing. So some of the things that I found out was that SD-WAN is a software-defined wide area network. Basically, it's kind of a virtualized network, essentially. It does use some kind of a controller uh, to basically create a logical assignment for the wide area network, and so that companies can communicate and basically with low latency, and so that it can be changed on the fly, so that different types of protocols and different situations that a company might call for certain things, they can pretty much change that at their own will, and without having highly skilled programmers in the company, like a Facebook or a Google kind of thing. They have highly skilled people on staff. HPC farms, high performance computing farms. Well, once I found out what the acronym stood for, it made a whole lot of sense. Obviously, now with data centers and the like coming up, as far as companies, especially virtualization farms and things like that, obviously high performance computing farms are part of that. And it's basically using the best technologies and the best resources to create, these high performance computing networks for, especially for virtualization and dealing with highly secure company matter and stuff like that. SD and overlay, software defined networks. Again, that works into similar technology as the software defined WAN technology. And again, it is pretty much the, from what I could gather, the SaaS, the software as a service, the infrastructure as a service, and the and those kind of things, or the services kind of things. Flops, floating point operations, mathematical computations, and since this company will be dealing with cryptocurrency and things like that, obviously, being able to handle to a very defined decimal point. I'm sure just fractions of a cent could mean a lot of money to a big company, especially dealing with cryptocurrency and things like that. So I can understand why that obviously would be important. And of course, so the cryptocurrency technology, again, we all kind of know what that is. It's really more using currency as a stock option. from my understanding, it fluctuates with the stock market and different things, and a lot of money can be made or lost using cryptocurrencies. But it is becoming a pretty, I won't say big, but it's becoming a technology that a lot of banks are now looking into, and companies want to incorporate. It seems a bit into uh, utilizing because a lot of people are going over to it. Some of the other things that uh, I broke down to was the desires, what this project uh, specifically asked for. So it asked for fast provisioning, which obviously, you know, uh, is going to require networks um, that can adapt to high traffic and especially fast over turnover because obviously in dealing with currencies and stuff like that, any kind of delay could mean money, and so that's pretty understandable why that would be obviously a big ask. Uh, Different geographical locations is something that obviously they might be abroad as well as locally, and they might be a big organization, international organization. So I'm sure having different geographical locations as well as disaster recovery would be a very important thing to have. So, looking into that, I feel that's pretty obvious. 24/7 and 24/7, 100% uptime. Um, in my understanding, in any organization, that's impossible. There's no way to have 24/7, 100% uptime. There's always going to be something. So, in dealing with that, some of the assumptions I was making was um, how to give a company some peace of mind and dealing with having to have that kind of uptime and loss of possible revenue from um, downtime. And that is like insurance companies, so basically transferring some of that risk to other companies. So I could see some part of this being either farmed out or bringing in a big organization to handle some part of this so that some of the risk can be transferred to other companies. So I think that's going to be a big part of the design. Some of the measurables are obviously the technologies. Using those specific technologies is a measurable thing, as well as the uptime, having the least amount of downtime, obviously. So high performance computing environment as well as high performance networking and also risk mitigation. I think those are some pretty big things. Currency mining is obviously another big measurable, and that is, I'm sure, well, this is an assumption, uh, they'll want to um, be able to compute down to a very large decimal point. So, as I said, just a fraction of a cent could mean a lot of money, especially when you're dealing with billions, possibly trillions. Um, some of the things that I was thinking about was the assumptions. So some of the assumptions was that this is kind of going to be, because it's dealing in cryptocurrency, it's going to be some kind of a banking endeavor or equivalent to that. It's going to be a company needing high security. It's going to be a company needing dealing with the risk mitigation for the monetary issues and downtime. Disaster recovery is going to be big, and transferring some of that risk for disaster across the company, and that you may have a location that can be a hot site um, somewhere opposite. Let's say you have one in California, you might want one either in New York or abroad, maybe in Britain or some other place, Sweden or Switzerland or someplace uh, that has really low risk factors for natural disaster, things like that. So those are some of the other things that I was thinking, obviously. So some of the things I'm looking to carry over is I'm still researching the administration and interfacing with cryptocurrency exchanges. Well, I've found many different types of cryptocurrency exchanges, and also understand what some of them are. I don't know how the market's affected by them. I still don't know how you actually interface and interact with them. That's still something I'm looking into. So that's a big thing that will be carried over. Obviously, I'll have a lot more research to do with those. Um, as far as the hardware and the software topologies, um, again, I'm looking into, because I'm making some assumptions as far as what this is going to be, some kind of a banking endeavor or equivalent. Obviously, I want to create a topology that is with overlays using the software-defined networking and wide area networks as to what are some of the best technologies and some of the best things to utilize, especially for what we need it for. Um, Also, I loaded the GNS3, but I'm just playing with it because I don't really know totally exactly, although I've used Packet Tracer. When I've tried to add routers and stuff like that, I was getting some issue doing that. So I'm not sure exactly what that is. So I'm still researching to see, what's going on with that. Or is there some other plug-in or something that I might need to use for that? As soon as I figure that out, obviously I'll update that. What I'm working on, obviously, right now is the video. You can see, if you can see, this is my Trello report. These are all the things that I had looked into as far as the research goes, and also the things that I'm still doing researching. I have nothing in my things to do right now. The way I envision this working is that through every sprint, I will come up with a new list of things to do. As I discover and learn more as this continues, I'll have new questions. There probably will be questions even when the thing's complete. There'll probably still be questions. So, so that's my things to do will always grow as my things doing and done grow. Or actually, my doing hopefully will become minimal by the end of this, and my done list will become very large, and my things to do list will always be fluctuating. So that's my sprint one. I hope you liked it. Unfortunately, I didn't get a whole lot of look at my computer, but I did want to at least address this. I was hoping that you could see my computer when I was doing this. Had a little trouble actually setting this up. So anyway, this is my YouTube. Thank you. Bye.